Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show. And today we have a very special guest, Laura Wilcox. And we're going to be talking about journaling today. And journaling, they always tell you journal, 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 journal. And I don't know about you, but I find it difficult at times. And part of it is, those words just don't want to come out. And there's a meme I've seen on Facebook, and it is a little girl, and she's got all the letters above her head, and she says, God, I don't know what to pray for. Can you please put the letters in the right order? So that's a little bit what we're going to talk about today, is how to use God to put those letters in the right order, and how to use journaling to come up with the hope, the relief that you require. So this is Laura Wilcox. Hello, Laura.
Hello. Hello.
I'm not used to doing it like this. We'll figure it out. So, Laura, tell them how you got started doing the journaling. Oh no, I want you to see the camera.
This, okay.
Yeah, we'll just we're so used to doing the other way.
Okay. So I've always liked writing in books and journaling. And then in about 2007, my husband at the time belonged to a very small church. And I had a woman come up to me and she said, Laura, honestly, I was praying during the service and God told me to ask you if you would teach Sunday school. So I said, okay, well, let me think about this. But when someone says, hey, God said this, I'm like, should I listen to them or not? So I ended up teaching Sunday school to 3 boys. Like I say, it was very small. They were ages 3rd grade up to 6th grade. And I had no idea what I was doing for Sunday school. I had never done it before, but I did have a kindergarten, preschool, school teacher background. So I thought, well, I'm just going to take all of those fun elementary school art crafts and fit them to the Bible. And I found books that led me to do so. And every week I followed the reading of the week, and then I created some fun activity. And at the end of the 3 years of me doing this, I asked the boys, so what did you like about the Sundays program that I put together? And they said, we liked it because we never knew what was going to happen every Sunday. We always knew we were going to come into some crazy activity with you. So I like that response, some crazy activity. I kept it very child-friendly, very simplistic to explain God to them. And once I was no longer teaching Sunday school, I loved it. I just loved pulling up my book and coloring in a book, or taking paper and ripping it up and gluing it like we did back in elementary school, and making a picture with those ripped up pieces of paper. And slowly I developed various exercises eventually I created these exercises of creativity, and I call it creative prayer art journaling. How to become a child of God by breaking the gap. And GAP stands for gratitude, art, and prayer. And when you practice gratitude and prayer art journaling every day, you start to have a deeper connection with God in the most creative, childlike way. You break away from the world and start to become the child of God that He wants you to be. You stop worrying about, well, that piece of paper isn't in the right place. I colored out of the lines. Oh, and in junior high, my art teacher said, well, I'll tell you a story. In high school, this was at break time, and I was drawing a tree. And my teacher said, that looks nothing like a tree. And for the rest of my adulthood, I was trying to figure out how to draw a tree. And then one day, I just sat there. I'm like, well, I'm just going to do it my way. And it has swirls, and it's just fun. I don't know if I have a picture. I'll see if I can find a picture of it. I can draw it later for you. But I have this beautiful tree that it's my tree. So, and it looks like a tree. And it's not about anybody else's judgment. This method that I have, it's in my own little books. Here's one of my journaling books. And do you know what this was?
What?
It was a baby book.
Oh my gosh.
This is a baby book. Can you see? And I have slowly decorate. Wait, I'm going the wrong way. How do you go with the camera? There. You guide me. And I have slowly filled it with all sorts of art. You tell me which way to go. There. Art projects. There. And so every time I sit down to my book and I take my exercises that I've developed and I sit in a quiet place and I say a prayer first and I ask the Lord to guide me. Now, we all have our different ways of praying, so you use your method. And in that moment, a person's name, an image, like a butterfly, whatever it might be, and I just start doing it. And some days it looks like maybe a first grader drew it. And some days I go, wow, how did I do that? And I can't repeat it because it's always the Lord. And then the next day it's just something new.
I love it. And years ago, I read a book and it was an artist talking about his craft. And he says that creativity is how God speaks through us. And I certainly feel that in my business. I can't tell you how many times I've just been like, the idea just pops into my head and like, I know I'm just a vehicle. I like to say it's all my talent. I have a lot of talent, but honestly, it's the connection of just there's that childlike awe and wonder that you really need to be creative. When you try to design from my head, after my miscarriage, my heart was broken in many, many, many pieces. And I had to design from my head. And it was horrible because I usually design from my heart. And there just wasn't any left. It had broken in so many pieces. It was like fine grains of sand. So there was no heart to work from. So I had to design from my head. And admittedly, those designs are not as good as the ones from my heart. They're good. Clients were happy. That's what matters. But for me, it wasn't as fulfilling. And to have that you have to get in touch with that inner child, because the inner child has more of a connection to spirit than we do. We've learned our way out of it, but the child still can connect with its own body, with the soul a little bit easier than we can.
So now I said I have these different exercises, 20 plus, but every time I do it, there's no set way. You might want to follow my method, but it's just you with that art supply. And you just said something. I'm going to go home and I'm going to somehow make a little broken heart. Oh. And I'm going to figure out how to put it together, and then I'm going to mail it. And while I make it, I will do prayers for lovely Jeanette here. And this is what I do sometimes. Just the other day, I was just making one of my papers. I'll take acrylic paints and do stamps and make really fun scrapbook paper. And suddenly somebody who I hadn't talked to for years, just lost touch. I was thinking of them. God brought them to mind. And this happens a lot. And so I continued to say prayers for them while I finished the art. And then I contacted them and said, may I send you something? And that's just how sometimes it is. I just sometimes say, I'd like you just to send you this piece of art that I made because God asked me to pray for you. And as I said, it's not a Mona Lisa anything. It's just special. And something about it when it comes from that child, right, elementary school level. Now, the worldly person would say, I could do better than that. Oh, and I've said that. I've said that about other people's art. But I've learned from that, it's not what it's about. It's about what love, what spiritual power of the Holy Spirit came into you. What did God feed into that moment when you were coloring that page from that coloring book? What did God say to you? What did God bring to you in that beautiful moment as you then spent time praying for someone else and not thinking about your own problems? That's what it's about.
That's awesome. I know for me, sometimes when I'm journaling and I said, it's just all the letters. But what often will happen is I start doodling because the words are too deep. The words almost hurt too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll start drawing.
Yes.
And what's really wild is I'll go back and look at it. And it's almost like I know what it says. Like it's not words, but I can look at that picture and I go, oh yeah, I remember that feeling. And it's almost like it's its own language of doodling, which I can't tell you, well, this is an A and this scribble means, like, it's not anything like that, but it does help to get those feelings out. And however you need to do that is good for you. Can you show us an exercise maybe?
Okay, let's see here. Can I show them my little book?
Yeah.
This is my little, again, I'm going to put there. Welcome to the internet. So this is my little book of many of the exercises. You have a piece of paper?
I'll get you one.
You can do it in my journal. Or you get, how about this? You get a piece of paper for yourself. And we'll do it together. So I find a page here.
Well, you're just getting that paper and pencil and everything. Yeah, I had a quick question, a quick thought, because something you said earlier actually had me thinking, because you mentioned that there was a teacher when you were a youngster that did not like the notion of you drawing the tree because it didn't look like a tree and everything along those lines. And I'm thinking to myself that as one that has got friends in the educational space, that's something that is too often happening in our society. We've got people that are not recognizing creativity or allowing creativity. Because the other thing that was crossing my mind, because y'all were talking about doodling, and I'm thinking to myself, how many times do we tell the kids in classrooms, stop doodling? And they might be actually doing some very good creative things and all along those lines. But I know, even though I'm not a teacher, I've got friends that are in the teaching field, that sometimes they'll say, stop doodling, stop writing, but they might be creating a great rap lyric. Because I had a friend of mine that literally, that's what he did. He wrote rap lyrics in his little notebook and everything. So I just wanted your thoughts about the fact that we don't encourage creativity enough.
Well, here's the thing. She did teach me how to make a tree. In the end, years later, when I finally figured out how to make a tree on my own, it was her irritation that in my head for all those years, I finally sat down and made my tree. So she kind of taught me. The thing is, I think that sometimes, first I want to say that sadly, she had a lot of her own emotional struggle stuff that she brought up in class quite a bit.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
That's an artist, right? So when I look back, I see her own struggles, and we have to sometimes remind ourselves from the teacher's perspective, because my daughter is kind of going through that with a certain teacher who can yell and, they have their methods. We have to step back and go, okay, who are they as a person? But of course, we can't see this until we're an adult. What was going on with them and how can we send them love? But remind yourself in the moment, if you can, or at least years later, to tell yourself, I forgive that person. And what did I learn from their not wanting me to write my rap lyrics in my book? How did that make me a better person, not giving in to their pushing me away from my goodness? How did it make me stronger? What did I learn from her? Because we are all human. So yeah, teachers are not perfect and they're stressed. So we have to find a forgiveness. I don't know. Hopefully I answered that.
No, you did answer that.
Look at Vincent van Gogh. I mean, he got so much backlash against his, or Dali, Salvador Dali. That's not a person. That's not a screen. Everybody wanted this perfect facsimile, and they were butting against, hundreds of years of art saying this is not okay. And now, look at them. We revere them as artists.
Yeah. No doubt. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, but I don't think I'd ever told you that story. But yeah, when I was at the GlaxoSmithKline, there was a young man that was involved in illicit activities, we'll just put it that way, but he was also working at that particular company. And I do remember, I might even have some of the notebooks laying around that he showed me some of his lyrics, because he was not the quote unquote traditional rapper. He wasn't African American and all in that space, but he was definitely wrote some very powerful lyrics. And like I said, I think I might even have some of them laying around that he shared with me, and I think may have them somewhere or another. But like I said, he was doing that as a form of doodling, because he was doodling those lyrics while he was supposedly doing other kinds of work as well.
So, you've put me on the spot. Well, let's go back to that squiggly idea
Okay.
you were saying. Oh, okay. Guide my hand where I'm putting things so I can show them. I carry this around with me. It's big and fat, and it has pencils and some more like crayons and scissors and lace and glue and all sorts of stuff in it. And I have another one here. This is full of, guide me again. This is full of papers and stickers and stuff. It's all in a really big box that I carry with me everywhere I go. And in the moment, if I'm sitting in the car waiting to pick up my child from school, there I am doing some art, gluing away. And it's fun. And I'm not always thinking about it. It's just, I'm going to put the sticker down and pray for so-and-so who I just found out has been diagnosed with cancer. And such a simple way to pray. And then you write their name around that sticker you put down. And slowly that art will grow into something more amazing. But what is the struggle you are going through right now? Okay. And you're going to just close your eyes and take a color. And I want you to quietly draw the squiggle and just let your hand just flow. And I'm not even looking at it. And then within it, try to have it so you don't even look at it. And then within it, maybe you'll see an image. And perhaps a squiggle represents just the chaos that's going in your life. You know, maybe you're a person who's listening to this and, you know, job struggles, family struggles. I can go on, health struggles, and you don't know where to start. You're overwhelmed. And this squiggle is that I just can't pray right now. I'm so stressed. I'm so worried. I don't know what to do. And then as you look down at this squiggle, here's my squiggle. Guide me again. Oh, there we go. There's my squiggle. And ooh, I see something in it. I don't always see an image in it, but I see something that could be a butterfly. And so I take my squiggle of mess, and within it, I then draw hearts. Now, again, to those of you that might say, I'm not a very good artist. Just draw a name of someone you were just thinking of who needs your prayers. Within that squiggle, let each squiggle be a space. Yes.
Art is from the heart, so
Yes.
it doesn't have to be perfect.
No.
And it's really, this is for your own edification.
Exactly.
And nobody even else has to see it. So it doesn't matter. I mean, one of my biggest struggles as a designer is my inability to draw. And I can do some drafting, but as far as doing 3D drawing, thank God electronics, I can do it all digitally now. But, I'd have people, can you do a 3D drawing for us way back when? And it was not something I felt, like, yeah, it's going to cost you. It's not something I've ever felt comfortable doing. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. I'll show you my scribble if it works. Can you see that?
Yes.
So I've seen you're doing something very interesting. I've seen on Facebook something similar where they have you draw this and you work. What's it called?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So what they do is they have you do something like this, and then they have you take all the sharp edges and round them out. And
Yes.
then they have you expand. And this, I like, it's actually a little bit more creative because I love that you're making butterflies
Okay, man.
out of your mess, which, you know, this is our mess, is this the
And you may
squiggle.
not see a picture. And I've done this many times and says sometimes I see nothing. And today I see butterflies. And maybe within each space, you'll write the name of someone you're praying for. Maybe you draw just a bunch of hearts. Again, as Jeanette said, this is not for anybody but you, between you and our blessed, amazing, almighty God. And in it, when you are quiet, when you are listening, when you are directly speaking to him, because that's what this has done for me. It's created more of a conversation with him. Names of people, problems, concerns come. And it's the most amazing moment because I am inside the prayer, the art in the moment. And suddenly all the worries just go away. And I'm very large on gratitude. And over these years, since the early 2000s, for me, gratitude, I learned about 12 to 13 different ways that we need to be thankful. And there's probably more than that. And it has helped me that as soon as I always focus my prayers, thank you, God, for healing so-and-so of their cancer. I don't know if he will or not, but I'm saying it in a way of he's in charge, he's done it, he's got it all in his hands, and then I'm walking away from the worry. I'm going to come back and keep praying for the person with cancer or the stress I'm going under, but I find that if I say, God, I'm so worried right now, I don't know what to do, I'm so stressed out, I do not feel better. That is not prayer to me. That is I'm terrified. And he's sitting there looking at me like, okay.
Well, and you're increasing the fear.
Yeah.
Which is also creating more what's cortisol in your body.
Yes. So I'm not feeling that, and I'm not walking away from the prayer.
Right.
Feeling peaceful.
Right.
So when I say in a peaceful way, look, you know what's going on. And I am so, well, okay, I'm going to give you an example. My daughter has been going through some stomach pains lately. Turned out she doesn't drink enough water. A little dehydrated. And so it's been constant. We've gone to the doctors, and it's been so much anxiety around the house and just drink water, and me getting frustrated that she's not drinking water. And then I have to come back to, thank you, Lord, for helping her to find ways to be more creative in drinking water. And thank you for helping me to be calmer. And thank you that you have the solution and this is all going to be solved. And I have to trust you that we're going to find an answer to this prayer. And before we knew it was dehydration, that's how I was feeling. You know what's going on. Thank you for answering this prayer. And then the answer came. But when I'm going like this and I just don't know what to do, I'm so frustrated. You not listening to when he's talking. And remember, and I'm sure many of you have heard this, he is always speaking to us, but we are not listening because we are arguing with him. We're too busy talking. So when you quietly sit down and doodle or write the same word over and over again, something happens.
It's true. And when you're really upset, you're not in a place where you can hear him. So I have, I like to pray in that point between wake and sleep, and I'll get some pretty amazing answers there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And shall we tell the story?
Sure.
Okay. So Laura and I met years ago. We were in a networking group and we were going through infertility together, and she decided that she was going to adopt. And she was having all of these, it was heartbreaking because the place that you adopted from had a lot of kids that already had the decks kind of stacked against them. And she called me and she goes, is this my baby? Is this my baby? And heartbreaking because there's little kids that they're born with alcohol syndrome or detoxing from drugs or whatever. And this kid needs so much love. And they'd call her. And I remember one time she called me and she goes, they've offered me this kid and da-da-da. And she says, but they're not sure. Da-da. So Jeanette, will you ask? Will you ask? And I did. And she had already said yes. But she was asking me, is this it? Is this it? And I got the answer no. And I started screaming at God. I said, she's been through too much. Do not put this baby in her arms if it's not hers. Having, we both went through a lot of stuff with miscarriage. And I said, she's been through too much to hold a baby and have to give it up. And 2 hours later, she called me and she said, the biological father decided he wants it. And I was so relieved because she never got to hold that baby. But what she did get, when she was calling, she says, Jeanette, when am I going to get? When? And, we get anxious and, she's very patient, lots of praying. And she kept saying, so I would listen. And for a good solid week, I listened in this quiet point. There's this quiet space. And I kept hearing 7, 7, 7. So then I tell her, I just keep hearing 7 when I ask about your baby. She goes, what does that mean? I said, well, maybe your baby's in utero and it's not born yet. And it'll be born in 2 months. And almost 2 months to the day, she calls me, I got my baby.
Well, and I think that the other one, the first situation, it's like God was saying, say yes, but it's not going to work out. Like he was in his way preparing the process. And I had to be in the right place, ready and trusting the Lord. And, and I too had to be calm and trusting that he was going to make it happen. And when I got the phone call, it was much more natural. Oh, yes. Did we have a baby? Oh, yes. It wasn't even a question like it was the other times because it felt right. And it was interesting because every time I got the phone calls, even though I didn't know if boy or girl, and I didn't, it didn't matter. But every time they did say boy, there was just something, okay. Well, But then the one and only time I got girl, I was like, yeah, I just said yes, but it felt right. And I somehow, like in my heart, always knew it was going to be a little girl. And she was made for us in a different situation, which I don't want to go on specifics on line, but, for those out there who might be going through and questioning the adoption situation, it doesn't matter where the child comes from, the background. It's God's intention of who that person, your friends, God puts people in our life for a reason, and he takes them from us for a reason. And friends, family, whatever it is, that person, that human is put there at that time in that way for a reason. And it's always trusting that the Lord has it intended.
Yeah.
And just saying, okay, you have this taken care of.
And you did a lot of journaling and praying during that time.
Yes. And there were a couple, back when I met my husband is one example. This is another example of wanting to have a baby, that both situations, partly why, God had his time anyway, but when I was ready to say, I'm done telling you what to do. I'm done worrying. You're in charge. You're in control. So would you please now lead me with calm and trust? And that seems to be a key thing, that whether it has to do with your career, your family, whatever the situation is, you're in charge here. A person who has been diagnosed with an illness, okay, this is going to change all our lives, but you're in charge here. Show me the way to the right people, to the right situations to help me through this and keep us safe. And I have this one prayer that I just naturally say: keep us safe, love us, guide us, lead us, help us, hold us, direct us, keep us safe in every way on our journey. And I just put any word that is to you protection coming from the Lord.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those end of the day prayers. When I have nothing to say, I say that.
Well, and the thing is, like, when we're like this, the energy can't come in, and we have to let go to have the energy come in. When I was in my 20s, I had asthma, and the doctors put me on all this medication, and one of them had me end up in the hospital with a nosebleed. Nobody could stop it. It was the beginning of AIDS, so everybody was afraid to touch blood. I mean, it was crazy. And I just was like, this is not working for me. There has to be another answer. And this was before the internet. I mean, like, you could get email maybe, but like before the internet was big and you could go look. And I knew there was another answer. I had no idea what it was, but I remember going, I know there's another answer and it will find me. And a few months later, my parents recommended this man to me who was an energy healer, and he was able to get rid of it in one session, which floored me. How much, but I asked for it, but I had no idea where it would come from. I just knew that the avenues that I was going down weren't working. So Mark's asking, how important do we feel art and creativity is to the healing process? 100%, because that's how God talks to us. That is how we heal, is by being creative. One of the things when you're dealing with depression is you've got to get into what do you appreciate, and get into that childlike mind of creativity.
Just really quickly, and that's kind of where I was going with that, was Laura, because I was mentioning to her that I know that she's in Pasadena, and I'm around the corner, or across the state, I should say, across the nation, in Durham, North Carolina, but actually one of the longest running programs in terms of incorporating art into their healing process is the one at Duke University. So Arts and Health at Duke is one of the oldest and most comprehensive hospital arts program. And I've actually had some friends that have done musical performances as well as visual arts and other kinds of arts in order to help with the healing process. And it seems like it works very effectively. I know a number of my artist friends enjoy being involved in that, whether that's doing drawing or whether that's doing performance art in that process. So I just wondering whether you've done any of that kind of stuff, even there in Pasadena, Laura, and if that's something that you think is important as folks are trying to deal with their health and all in that space.
Mostly I've been doing this with myself, but I've done a little bit with other people. And that's why I'd like to bring more people into the environment. But when I've done it with someone, new to me to be on top of things. Okay. How important do you feel art and creativity is the healing process? So I'm just going to give the example of, as my daughter has been going through these stomach pains that she was going through, she herself, and she's 8, very wise child, very wise child. And she was like, you know what, let me sit down and just doodle in my journal. And she said, as soon as she wrote a Dear Lord prayer in her journal and was drawing pictures. And then at that moment, she had more energy to just get up and get out of the bed. But she was really struggling. And so, yes, there's so many places all over that do this work.
You've recently had a death in the family. Did you use this to help you with that? And did it help her?
Yes. It's helped to, because you're referring to my mother-in-law, and, like sometimes people, she was kind of a hard person to get to know. There was a lot of stress around cleaning out her house, but in the process, I've done a lot of creativity in cleaning out her house. With, I'll get frustrated and be like, why would somebody keep this? Why would somebody keep that? And then I go, ooh, look at that really cool piece of lace. I'm going to use that in my art. Right there. that piece of lace, you know, oh, wow, that's really pretty. I'm going to use that in my art. And I found myself through the healing of dealing with the loss and the clean out of what goodness did God bring to this situation? What fun have I found? And then what forgiveness that person, if there was anything that went on with that person, whereas my forgiveness, instead of getting more frustrated, but saying, you know what, I forgive that person. They were going through their own struggles. And then from it, I took a piece and then I made a beautiful piece of art in her honor in my journal.
And each member of the family was going through grief differently. Your
Yes.
husband, obviously, his mother's died. That's huge. You didn't have as much connection with her, but then your daughter had a very different experience of grief. And it was balancing all of those experiences
Yes.
of grief that was also difficult because your experience with your mother-in-law was not the same as your husband's.
No.
And yet his grief was much deeper and still had to be honored.
Yes, yes. And I can't think of a specific right now, but I do know that even though my daughter sometimes, you know, she had struggles, there were goods and bads, but she still loved her grandmother very much and drew a picture and wanted to remember the good times and the times that they actually were together and they were building blocks and laughing together and using those memories and then putting them in her journal and drawing about the blocks. And she drew, yes, I remember now, there was this shortly after her grandmother had passed, because we were living with her and taking care of her in this process. And so that was hard on my daughter because she was having to live in the house as her grandmother was passing. And she then drew a picture of her grandmother and herself in the living room with the blocks and the memory of that and the laughter around, oh, they were playing with how the blocks were falling and how silly that was. And that was reinforcing the good memories instead of any struggles there might have been through watching the process of her grandmother passing away. She was focusing on the goodness, not on the difficulty. So now she's remembering more of the good things instead of what happened in the past, any problems.
It's hard when somebody's going through illness and you're taking care of them. And in that moment, there's a lot of emotions. On one hand, you know, there's overwhelm and there's, it's, oh my God, I have to do this. And, you know, it's like my dad, when he was dying, you know, changing his diapers. I never thought I'd change my dad's diaper, you know, but, you know, it's like, it's got to be done and you're there and you just kind of step up to the plate and you do it. You know, he had a daughter from a different marriage and she was like, yeah, I'm not doing that, you know, and, you know, so everybody has their own level of what they can handle too. And when you're dealing with somebody who's, you know, sick, they're hurting and they take it out on you. And so it's like, okay, well, where's the, you know, what's real here? Because when we're in pain, we lash out. I mean, that's just human nature. And, you know, my dad said a few things at the end. I was like, okay, you know, but in reality, it was the pain talking. And so it's hard to find that line of, but that's where the doodles come in, because you don't want to say, oh, I hate him because he said this to me.
And I fill with hearts.
Fill with
Fill with love.
Okay.
Color it in.
I will.
These are good pencils. Well, I want to say something interesting about, again, what is prayer? Now, my method is sitting down and journaling, writing words, pictures. Now, back to the changing the diapers of adults that we have to care for who once cared for us. Okay. Not an easy process. We went through that too. That is a time, believe it or not, to use this prayer. Changing diapers for adults, pray. And that is your moment, instead of being like, oh, I can't believe, why am I the one who's doing this? Why can't we go hire someone to, you know what, God, you have me in this situation. I am not liking it. You know that. But nothing is perfect, and this world is not perfect, but here you are teaching me. So whatever you are teaching me, right? Thank you. whatever I'm learning right now, thank you for giving me the strength, the peace, the calm to do this for this person. Even if they weren't kind to me, thank you for helping me to give them the love they need, that they have been seeking because they had their own struggles. Thank you. Thank you for helping me to help them. Now, with that, so that's one prayer. The other day, who here loves to clean house? Yeah. And so when I'm in the mode, so I was washing the dishes. And sometimes it's just you wash the dishes. But I have found that I am more motivated to clean the house and wash the dishes and do whatever I need to do when I will pick up a plate and I'll say, I'm praying for so-and-so, a mother, a friend, a friend of mine who maybe I'm in a Bible study with. Let me think of a specific person. Okay. So I'm praying right now for this friend from my Bible study. And this happened the other day. I had my scrub brush and I'm sitting there and I'm scrubbing. Help, Lord, to scrub away her pains and her struggles as I'm scrubbing this plate. I honor this one plate to her as I'm washing and cleaning, and I'm thinking of her as you're healing her in every way. And then I go to the next plate and I say this next prayer for somebody else. And this glass I pray over this glass for this next person. And I'm vacuuming. And suddenly I'm not thinking, oh, vacuum, hate vacuuming right now. I can't, I can't stand that I'm vacuuming. But suddenly I'm saying prayers for the people in other countries who are going through wars, the people who are starving. And I'm thinking of them as I'm vacuuming. So my mind is not thinking about cleaning the house. It's on something else. But I'm doing this chore in honor of someone who maybe doesn't have the physical ability to do these things because they were in a car accident, because some horrible thing happened to them. And now they can't, or because they're not living anymore. And they can't clean the house. They can't drive to work. And so those are the times when we want to pray and be so grateful for our ability of what we can do, whether we like it or not.
It's so true. I mean, I think we take for granted the fact that we can move. And then you have a surgery or you stub your toe or something. And you're like, oh, wait a second. I had my gallbladder out and I was like, oh, I didn't know I used my stomach muscles that much, but until we can't do it, we take for granted. I grew up with a lot of special needs kids around me, and, they have so much joy, and I tied my shoes, which we totally take for granted. Another funny story, my nephew, he's like 18 months, 2 years old, and I'm cutting his French toast, and he goes, Jeanette, you're a genius. I'm like, why would I do? You cut my French toast. I'm like, oh, cool. Let's try that again in 6 months, right? So 6 months later, I'm cutting his French toast. Am I still a genius? Why? Well, I cut your French toast. Oh, that's nothing, Jeanette. But this is how, he couldn't do it the first time. And the second time, he probably could. He would have made a big mess, but he probably could do it. And it wasn't as big a deal because it was something he was not in awe of. We watch the Olympics and we see all these things, and it's like, because it's not something we're willing to put the time in to do. I know I'm never going to be in any Olympics. Never wanted to. That's not where I feel driven to go. But we can watch somebody else's body do these things that we may not even have a desire to do and be amazed at it. So we take for granted, what's the phrase? Getting old isn't for the weak. Because when we're young, our body moves, right? It's fine. But then as you get older and you start getting aches and pains, and this doesn't work and that doesn't work, and it's like, you go to any rest home and there's a long laundry list of things that they're suffering with. And that gets into the whole healing stuff. But doing this journaling exercises, you're getting out the emotions, because what happens is when the emotions get stuck in our bodies, that creates pain. And this is one way to get it out. And, maybe there's something that you're really hurt about. Maybe there was abuse. Maybe there was something that is so painful to you that you don't want. Right after the miscarriage, I couldn't talk. I could just do scribbles. That's all I could do, because the words inside my head were so deep and they're not words that normally would come out of my mouth. And it was like the silent scream. I could just, the feelings were so intense that I couldn't vocalize them, because it was like the Princess Bride when he goes up to 10 and he takes his life force out of him, and then he's mostly dead. So, but it was that scream. But I felt like if I opened up my lungs to let that scream out, it was too much to handle for me or for anybody else. And so by doing this journaling, you can let out that silent scream. You can let out those words that are so hurtful that you don't even have the words to put to them, because the pain is so deep. So we have like 10 minutes left. I want to give you a chance to is there anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to do before we close?
Well, so again,
why don't you show a few more pages
Okay.
here, because this is pretty cool.
So this is something that my daughter made, and I put it in my journal. Okay. It doesn't have to be anything special. I showed you earlier. So if you're familiar with Eric Carle, and he did Caterpillar, the Hungry Caterpillar, and he did, my hand's going around, tissue paper collage in his art. And so I was inspired by that. So I figured out how to make tissue paper, and that's one of my meditation things. This is, let's see, this is pattern, those old patterns that people use to make clothes. And then I tie-dyed it, and then I added some stickers, and it's not supposed to make sense. None of this is supposed to make sense. It's just fun. Now, you can start with a simple book, okay? But I've really gotten into a lot of the vintage stuff since I've been cleaning out my mother-in-law's house. I have found so much cool stuff. Old address books. People don't use those anymore. Old baby books, wedding books. This one I actually found at a store, but I found a lot of baby books and wedding books that she had not used, that she had collected. This was a doll calendar with some odd looking dolls. There we go. And so I've slowly covered up every page with something. I haven't started using this journal, but I'm slowly just decorating it and filling it with beauty. These are stickers that I made. I made those stickers with tape and origami. And I'm just simply, so this is an old calendar, any book, and you just start one page at a time. And when you start, you open it up and you say, Lord, just say a prayer. Speak to me right now. Sit with me. Lead me in what you have to tell me right now. You can focus on a specific struggle for yourself or for somebody else, and just start to write and let your hand flow. Like we were doing the doodle, just let your hand flow in a quiet time. And where I was many years ago, it started with me just putting stickers on a page. And now I actually have improved, more or less, my drawing ability. I'm getting better at drawing faces. I'm getting better at drawing trees and butterflies. And all my trees, butterflies, and flowers all have this swirl. That's my signature. I draw this swirl when I'm drawing. And It's you, who you are. The gift, and what this is doing is we all have gifts that God has given us, but we're not recognizing those gifts. So when we're sitting down and opening up this book, we're saying, God, what is it that you need of me while I am here on earth? Who can I help? What can I do? How do you want me to use these gifts to better my life and others before my end days, so that I can be here giving of what you need me to give before I go on up to heaven?
That's so beautiful. I don't even know how to follow that up.
I don't know what I said, and it's hard for me to say it again because that's how God works. You say something, you do something, and I'll draw things, and I will try to recreate it, and then I can't recreate it.
I know.
Because in that moment, and some will say, well, you should just practice, but it's not the same. Like the first time was good, and then you go, wow, and then something else comes out from you next time.
What I like about this technique is that, my first degree is in literature, and many writers have journals that have been published. Many figures in history have journals. And on one hand, it's an incredibly wonderful gift that we get to read these journals, because we get to really see what life was like and the inner workings of their mind. On the other hand, it's very much an invasion of privacy. And
yeah, because I don't know who will be reading it someday, so I do get like
right. And so I was journal everything out. And I'm like, you know what? Nobody needs to see this ugly part of my brain. I don't even need to see this ugly part of my brain. And so when I know I'm writing something really deep, I'm like, I will purposely write very messy, or I do this doodle thing, because if somebody's able to look at it and get the feeling that I had from it, that's fine. But they don't need to hear all of those words.
Let me say this. It is okay to write it out and then go over there to the shredder and dump it.
100%.
It's okay.
100%.
But there's something in the, no, you might say, well, why do I have to write this? We haven't said that. Why do I have to put this on paper? Why can't I just talk to God? There's something about having this moment and using your visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, that's your feelings, physical part, of putting that on paper and sitting there with the blessed Lord in that moment and releasing it all, and then reading it again. And then if you want to throw it away and shred it, it's okay. That was between you and God.
Whatever.
Yeah,
rip it up. If you want to be angry, rip it up.
Yes, that's fine.
It's all good.
But when I find the beauty, I want to put that up. So I keep that. But if it were something that I just have to release, and then yes, I put it on paper, and then I just let it go, and I give that up to God. And so, but that's really through my background of coaching, of the things I used to do. That's the key thing of how I teach, of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. What I hear, what I see, what I physically do. And I bring that all into my gratitude prayer and my art. And it's amazing how then spiritually and through the Holy Spirit, it connects.
So Laura, tell us how we can connect with you if we want to get more information about your journals.
I'm not one who I'm mostly my email.
Okay. Which is
Wilcox, WILCOX, Laura, LAURAD @gmail.com. Wilcox Laura D @gmail.com.
That's awesome.
And someday I'll get better at Instagram and figure that out.
So she does have a pamphlet if you're interested, or if you want to do some private tutelage with her, she'll be happy to do some artwork with you, art therapy. She's really very good at doing all that. And, she's lived it. She's done it herself. So, all right. So now we're going to go into another way of being healthy. We've dealt with our souls today, and then we're going to deal with our bodies.
Okay.
So Kendo Spice is one of our favorite spices because it's healthy for us. And it's a great way to get all of those wonderful nutrients in with ease. Just a pinch, a little pinch on your dinner, and it makes a huge difference. So go ahead, Can Do Spice.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.